card of the year, Ring 4, headlined by the Mexican Monster as he took on Anthony Yarde.
Every fight on the main card could have been its own individual main event. Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes fight, that was a dog fight. That could be a nominee for Fight of the Year.
Haney, Garcia, they were the new generation. Not anymore, right? Mason is the new generation.
I want to see unification fights. How do you guys think he would match up against Davis? The fight that surprised me the most was the Haney and Norman fight.
He made me eat my words. I was talking a lot of trash about him. Just the skills that Devin Haney displayed, he made Brian Norman look like an absolute amateur.
Best performance of the night was Bam Rodriguez.
It was disrespectful, honestly, the way that Bam was treating him. He was playing with his food.
It seemed as though he was smiling right before he stopped Puma.
The Mexican Monster, David Benavidez, got the TKO stoppage over Anthony Yarde in a one-sided massacre. It got so bad, I felt bad for Yarde.
Listen, this is the boogeyman of boxing. Oh, people do not want to fight David Benavidez, dude.
I'll be honest. I think Benavidez would beat Bivol. I think he would beat Beterbiev as well. I think he's the best light heavyweight champion fighter at the moment. So welcome back to another episode of the Last Round Podcast, where we cover everything from traditional boxing to influencer boxing and everything in between. Today's episode, we'll be going over the card of the year in Ring 4, as well as Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. But before we get into the episode, make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. Lastly, we're trying to build up a community on Discord, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. And now, diving into the episode, like I just mentioned right now, card of the year, Ring 4, Saudi Arabia, headlined by the Mexican Monster, David Benavidez, as he took on Anthony Yarde in a light heavyweight showdown. This whole entire card, the main card especially, was phenomenal. I think every single fight brought something special to the evening, and overall I had a good time watching it, and I had a great time throughout the entire event. What were you guys' thoughts of the overall event?
Yeah, I definitely think that Abdullah Mason and Noakes was the best card of the night. It was the fight of the night. I mean, these guys were going back and forth. They were throwing some heavy shots. Noakes is an absolute animal. He's so fucking tough. And Abdullah, we already knew the skill level that he was at, but now he has an accolade. You know, he is the youngest world champion in boxing today. At 21 years old, he became a world champion, and I mean, this guy is just so talented. So, the way, I know that wasn't the first fight of the night, but that kind of set the tone for the whole night. And we got Bam Rodriguez next. Obviously, I mean, this guy looks spectacular. It was amazing. I feel the only thing that was wrong with this card was, of course, the co-main event. You know, Devin Haney surprised me. He made me eat my words. I was talking a lot of trash about him. I didn't think he was going to win this fight, but, you know, he got the victory, and it was a classic Devin Haney fight. You know, he was on the outside, perfect jab. So he performed well, and then David Benavidez obviously had to go in there and shut out the night. You know, he performed amazing. He was so dominant. He got Yarde out of there and showed that there's levels to this. So all in all, I was very happy with the card. I think Turkey also should be very happy. The only thing is I feel kind of bad for these boxers because they were fighting at like 3 to 6 in the morning, you know, in Saudi Arabia. So, you know, shout out to them. They're really risking their lives, their sleep. They're risking everything to put the fans a show. So hopefully everyone enjoyed the fights.
Yeah, I did so too. Every fight on the main card could have been its own individual main event, right? I mean, even just that Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes fight, that was a dog fight. That could be a nominee for Fight of the Year. You know what I'm saying? Just given the background of these two young fighters. First time going up for a world title, both undefeated. And, you know, they really put and showed their heart out. You know, even though both of them got cut, both of them got touched up a little bit. And some of them, it looked like some of those punches were really like taking some effect. I know Abdullah had quite a bit of good shots that he landed on Noakes, and you could tell Noakes felt it. But I mean, he's a dog as well. He came back and he takes two and gives one right back. So really good. And then I think for me was the fight that surprised me the most was the Haney and Norman fight. Just the fact that Haney just showed almost a different side of him. It almost seemed as though Haney now possesses power at this weight class. He stumbled Norman Jr. with the left hook, and then he comes back with another left hook, and then the right hand right through the guard, dropping him. Yeah,
that was the craziest thing about it because, listen, Devin Haney, I've always said that I think he has great skills, obviously, but in the power department, he lacks a little bit. And a lot of boxing fans and critics, they go online and they obviously, make fun of him and say he doesn't have any power. He hits, they call him Pillow Hand Haney on Twitter, right? So he obviously has a lot of haters. But the thing is, though, I mean, this fight, it was insane. Like, it was actually, Haney was being a lot more, he didn't run as much as I thought he was going to, or he didn't move around as much as I thought he was going to.
No, there was multiple instances where he was actually taking the fight towards Norman. I mean, right away, I believe he maybe lost that first round, but I mean, the second round, he stunned us all, and I think it really showed, or it really started dictating the fight towards in favor of Haney.
Absolutely. I mean, it was insane. I think it was the timing, and 140. Okay, so Haney has always been a very big guy, and he's been, you go back to the weigh-ins against Kambosos, and you see him. That guy's a skeleton, man. He's naturally a very big guy, so he's been killing himself making 135, making 140, even 140. So I think that definitely has a lot to play in like the amount of power that he possesses. Like it's not like he has pillow hands, because he definitely doesn't. But he relies a lot on timing, and I think right now at 147, I think it's a good weight class for him. His body is filled out. He feels good. He feels strong. He doesn't have to kill himself to make the weight limit like he was at 140 or 135. So I think that this definitely was Devin Haney, the Devin Haney that we used to know. Not dangerous, but sharp, man. So sharp, so alert, in control, dominant. So I really was impressed with Devin Haney. He definitely, like I said, he made me eat my words. I thought Norman was going to be able to pull this fight off, but just the skills that Devin Haney displayed, he made Brian Norman look like an absolute amateur. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I think he definitely showed the levels, just with the boxing IQ. And when I gave my prediction last week, I had that in mind, but I figured that the assassin was going to be able to break through that and just be able to land one or two punches and then get him out of there. But I mean, he couldn't even do that. I mean, it seemed as though he kept eating Devin Haney's jab to the face. At the end of the fight, his whole face was busted up. I wouldn't be surprised if he had some type of a breakage around the nose or whatever. But not only that, but I think another thing that you mentioned was the weight. So maybe now that Devin Haney doesn't have to cut so much weight, and now it's more closer to his walk around weight, maybe we're gonna see a little bit more power from Haney now. At 147, he looks very good. I mean, he still has that speed, timing, and everything, but now you add the element of possibly carrying a bit of power now. So that's something interesting.
Yeah, Haney is carrying that weight really good. And the thing I was so surprised about is, listen, Brian Norman has been in there with some power punchers like Santillan. That guy hits hard, man. Like he's not just a walkover. Like if you were before this fight, we were to say, oh, who hits harder, Haney or Santillan? Of course, you're gonna be like Haney, or no, sorry, you're gonna say Santillan. Santillan hits harder than him, but Santillan didn't do really anything to Brian Norman, and I just think this definitely was a big step up for Brian Norman Jr. He's never been at this level. Haney is an undisputed world champion. He's now a 3-division world champion, so he's accumulating accolades. Obviously, he's one of the best fighters of the new generation for sure, without a doubt. But just the way. I knew that going in, but I didn't think I thought Norman just was going to be a little bit more smarter. Man, like he got in there and he was just so amateur. He was throwing from such a long distance. He wasn't like, when he was trying to go inside, he didn't know how to break the distance, how to get closer without Haney, throwing a jab or moving away. It was just so obvious or so telegraphed when Norman was going to throw. And, with Haney, he's used to that. He knows how to read a fighter. He knows when a fighter is, loading up on a punch. So I guess I'm probably put a little bit too much confidence in Norman going into this fight. Probably his last fight in that knockout of the year contender, that might have played a role. But I really thought he had a little bit more boxing IQ. And he didn't show it this past weekend, so it was kind of sad.
They interviewed Brian Norman after the fight in his locker room after the defeat, and they're kind of asking him like, "Yo, like, what were your thoughts about the fight? Was there anything from Haney that surprised you?" And he said no, that there was nothing from Haney that surprised them. That everything came from his side, meaning that all the errors, all the mistakes, they were expecting Haney to fight the way that he did that night. But that everything that they weren't able to pull off was just because of his own mistakes. So, and also the interesting part was that they asked him about the knockdown, like what was going on, like what was he thinking during that time, and he said, I got hit with the shot, I got up, and then I kept going. He called it a flash knockdown. A flash knock. That was not a flash knockdown. He was clearly hurt.
That's the crazy thing too, because I saw that clip and he was saying flash knockdown. I got right back in there and I was fighting. I was like, okay, bro, like let's calm down for a little bit. You went in there and you were damn near out on your feet. You watch that back. When he got up, his eyes were like a deer in headlights. That boy was hurt bad, and I don't think he was. If Haney had a little bit of more of that killer instinct, I think he definitely could have stopped him there, because Norman was really hurt. His legs were not under him. He was dazed. He was confused. And so I think that's one thing with Devin. Maybe this could be an area of improvement, honestly, because at 147, since he doesn't have to cut so much weight, maybe he can hold a little bit more power. And, his timing obviously is amazing. So when he times his opponent, when he lands a good shot and he hurts his opponent, maybe working on that killer instinct, because there was still a good amount of time in that round where I believe he could have capitalized a little bit more. And even the next round, I still think Norman was still hurt, man. He was buzzed. So that could be an area of improvement. Haney, maybe he's carrying around a little bit more power than we thought. Maybe work on that, work on your inside fighting, work on that killer instinct. When you see your opponent hurt, try to finish the fight.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be kind of smart now that maybe, him and his father can, talk about that. When they see an opponent hurt, maybe, step on the gas and, stay on that front foot. But I think one thing that I want to say is the fact that the Normans kind of tricked us. I think I want to say maybe even when they were going to fight Boots, how there was a lot of talk between both teams and then it didn't happen. And then, he had this knockout of the year in his last fight. And then all those clips of him doing the jump rope, doing all these different training things. I remember, I think maybe I fell for it. I mean, I think that's why another reason why I gave my prediction towards him was the fact that I just thought he was going to be able to cut off the ring. But I mean, just the levels, Devin Haney was so far above him. He was doing whatever he wanted to do. He was like, just like that saying, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Devin Haney was able to move around the ring, and Norman was just so amateur-like, so robotic, so stiff, and he couldn't even catch Haney. I'm pretty sure he never even landed anything dangerous on Haney.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it was the inexperience at the elite level, because, I mean, if you look even back at his fight against Sasaki, he was so much more explosive. He looked like a different version of himself in that fight compared to how he fought against Devin Haney. He fought I felt he was way too stiff, way too robotic. And then after the knockdown, that's what really changed the tone for everything. But, all respect to Devin Haney. He went in there, did his thing, showed his level, and got the win. But I think we I see, I saw online a lot of people were saying, "Oh, this was the best performance of the night, this and that." I was like, "Yo, chill, guys, come on." First half of the fight was definitely a Devin Haney show, but second half of the fight was fucking buns, man. It was bad. It was a bunch of clinching, a bunch of, I wasn't too impressed second half, but Haney went in there, got his win, showcased his level, and is now a 3-division world champion. And a lot of people are giving him the accolade of, or the title of being the best welterweight on the planet, which I think he probably is at the moment. So now we have a new champion. We have Mario Barrios in there. We got Rolly Romero. We got Crocker from the UK. And now we got Devin Haney as part of that champion list. So we got a couple matchups we can make at the welterweight division. Devin Haney keeps on, getting these accolades, and definitely out of the quote-unquote 4 kings between him, Ryan Garcia, Gervonta, and Teofimo, he's definitely number 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's made it very interesting for him. Now he is a world champion at 147. So Mario Barrios and Ryan Garcia are scheduled to fight in February. And listen, we want this rematch, right? The fans want the rematch between Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney. No PEDs involved, right? So it looks like, Haney he needed this fight, man. He really did, for his career to still be talked about among like the elites, and keep making money fights like this. So it's a great win for him. I think Mario Barrios and Ryan Garcia are obviously going to fight in February, and I think that, Ryan Garcia is going to knock out Mario Barrios. That's my early prediction, right? I think he's going to get him on a highlight reel KO. And Ryan Garcia is going to be a world champion. Devin Haney is going to be a world champion. So I'm hoping that in 2026, by the end of 2026, we're able to get a rematch between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. And this is what the fans want to see.
Yeah, I want to say, the Last Round podcast can read the future. Ryan Garcia stops Mario Barrios. Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia too. 2026.
Well, that was the matchup that was supposed to be going on for this past weekend. Yeah. If Ryan Garcia would have performed against Rolly Romero, which was the ideal plan for them to fight later on in the year. So missed opportunity. It's got to be postponed till next year. But with bigger things on the line, if, like you said, if Ryan Garcia does beat Mario Barrios, he finally becomes world champion, and the stakes get a lot higher. So it's definitely very interesting to see, even though I don't believe that Ryan Garcia deserves a title shot at all. He's coming off from a title shot and fought like straight doo-doo. So I don't know how he gets another one. Money talks, I guess. So Ryan Garcia is definitely aiming for that rematch, and maybe we can get a decisive winner in the rematch between him and Haney, since the first one got called a no contest. So like I was mentioning earlier, people were saying Devin Haney, best performance of the night, yada yada. I say I disagree. Best performance of the night was Bam Rodriguez. Let's go down to the 115 unification title fight between Bam Rodriguez as he took on Puma. And look, this fight was a prime example of the difference between a pound for pound fighter against a world title champion. Because, Puma, he's got the accolades. He was undefeated. He was a champion. And Bam Rodriguez, same way. But you clearly saw the difference in levels between a pound for pound fighter and just, a regular world champion. And there was no rounds in that fight that I gave Puma. It almost felt like Bam stayed at that first gear for most of the fight, coasting, playing with his food, until finally he said, let me just finish it off. And then 10th round, delivered a highlight reel KO over Puma and unified the division, and is one more win away from becoming undisputed. Thoughts about that fight?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I think that's what I would say. The fighter of the night was Bam Rodriguez. It seemed as though he was smiling right before he stopped Puma. And I was watching it with my girl, and I told her like after like the third round, I can see Puma's nose running. He had blood running down his nose, and he just kept pawing at it throughout the whole course of the fight. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I think his nose might be broken. And then I was like, I think he might get the stoppage, and he did. Yes, Puma. I think within boxing, we see a lot of these padded records and these padded champions. These guys who have been protected, but that's not the case with Puma. Puma's a guy who he's made it there from the bottom. He comes from Argentina, rough streets of Argentina, and he fought his way all the way to the top. Mostly stopping the majority of his opponents, and he runs in against Bam, and those instances at the press conference, at the weigh-ins. Puma felt good. Puma right now, I'm pretty sure he's at the prime age, in between those prime ages, and so he felt good. He felt that he was going to stop Bam, but Bam showed. He is a pound for pound fighter, and once you're able to acknowledge what that really means, you can see the difference within the levels of the whole fight. Puma could never hurt Bam. He never was able to connect anything major, and the whole fight he was fighting a Bam's fight.
Yeah, I mean, it was disgusting. It was disrespectful, honestly, the way that Bam was treating him. He was playing with his food. I think Bam, it was like a sparring match for him, honestly. It was so insane to see. Like, Bam was so calm. He wasn't even moving in, like, anything crazy. He was taking his angles like he always does, right? But his demeanor was just so calm, so confident. It exuded confidence, man. Like, and Puma was trying his hardest, right? He was going in there. He was winging some shots, some heavy shots, and 9 times out of 10 they would miss. Bam would take the angle and just completely Puma would just whiff his shot. So it was so impressive to me, man. Like I've been saying that Bam is a top 5 pound for pound fighter. It couldn't be more true, really, realistically. I think just the way he's defeating these world champions in his weight classes, like, it's so disrespectful. I mean, it's so he's making them look like amateurs. Like, we just got done talking about Devin Haney and Brian Norman looking like an amateur. This was even worse. I mean, Puma would just look so bad. Like, he looked like he didn't even belong in the ring with him, man. It was insane. And like you were mentioning this too, that Bam was smiling right before he countered Puma and knocked him out. Isn't that insane? Mm-hmm. This guy, he's so aware. He was literally smiling. He saw Puma load up with a shot, slipped it, and then came back with his counter and knocked him out. Like, it was so insane to me. I think Bam Rodriguez probably... I was looking back at my pound for pound list, and I'm thinking he's like number 4 in the pound for pound rankings. It's unfortunate that he's going up against like Usyk and Terrence Crawford, right? Because those and Inoue too. Those are all generational fighters, so it's very hard for him. But I think just the way he's handling all the champions at 115 now, he has 3 of the 4 belts. He's only missing 1, and he'll become undisputed once again. It's just so impressive to me, and with his skills, I definitely think he can go all the way up to 126, maybe even 130, and win a world title. That's how good he is.
Wait, was Bam ever undisputed before?
No, he was not. So it'd be his first time becoming undisputed. But I mean, he became a world champion in a different weight class. So as of right now, he's a champion in 2 different weight classes. But I think for me personally, I did have him on the pound for pound list. I had him 8 or 9. Now I want to say I would put him like 6. I mean, you also have to take into consideration like Bivol, Beterbiev, and unfortunately, that fight. I don't know when they're gonna have that trilogy. Because of obvious reasons. I think Bivol is still recovering, and Beterbiev I think has some other fight plans. I think so. I think maybe we'll see that fight sometime next year. But I feel like you still have to put them somewhere within the top 10. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Bam is up there for sure.
Yeah, and he's got one more fight left. In order to become undisputed, the current title holder is Willy Baldo Garcia, who is set to fight on the Inoue versus Picasso undercard against Kenshiro Teraji, who Teraji was actually in the top 10 pound for pound for a while before he lost earlier in the year. So he's got another shot at the title. So if he wins, I mean, it'd be Teraji against Bam Rodriguez for undisputed 2026. But I mean, look, there's no one in 115, no one in 118 that can beat Bam. I mean, he's way too good. He showed the levels against Puma. This is what it's going to be for the rest of his time at 115 and at 118. The only issue or the only problems I see him having is when he starts going up in weight. 122 was perhaps where we're going to see a Junto Nakatani fight, which hopefully, it's always been teased, him against Nakatani and him and Inoue. But excluding that, 115, 118, there's no fighters there that would pose a challenge for Bam. So he's going to reign supreme forever in those weight divisions until he decides to move up. So it's good for Bam. Top 5 pound for pound in my list. Only 25 years old, and he's got so much career left and so much room for improvement. So, hey, man, the Bam show is just getting started, and he's definitely one of the most decorated he's literally the best under 30 fighter on the planet right now. So props to Bam. He's so good. He made it look boring, man. So Bam Rodriguez was definitely performance of the night, but I think, like we mentioned earlier, the fight of the night was, of course, Abdullah Mason against Sam Noakes for the vacant, was it WBA? It was WBA, right? Yeah, for the vacant WBO championship lightweight title. Now, Sam Noakes, last episode, I said, I don't really know much about him. I know he's undefeated. He's got heavy hands. That's all I really know. I got to go for Abdullah just based on what I know. But this was a great showing from Sam Noakes, even though he did come up short, and I thought he did lose the fight. But that dude is one tough motherfucker, heavy-handed, and he's definitely a top contender at 135, man. I was really impressed. I actually like his style, so I'm happy to see more of Sam Noakes in the future. But Abdullah Mason, 21 years old, becomes the youngest active champion in boxing today, and it's a successful top rank investment that paid off. Thoughts about that fight?
Yeah, tough. I think that's the thing that kind of surprised me a little bit about Noakes is the fact that I think he received most of the damaging shots. The headbutt or the cut that he sustained didn't really help either. But also just the body work that I saw Abdullah Mason do in the middle portion of the fight. But he still kept going. There was no. And congrats to both fighters because it seemed as though both of them had a ton of cardio. But for Noakes to still be able to have that intensity in the later portion or in the championship rounds, I thought it was tremendous. I thought even though he was gonna lose, even just on my personal scorecard, even though he was gonna lose, I felt that it was still a. I don't think he should be too hard on himself. I think this proves the fact that he's still championship worthy type of a fighter.
Yeah, definitely. Sam Noakes, amazing performance. I think Abdullah Mason had the better skills. He is a lot more gifted. He's a lot quicker. His boxing IQ was a lot higher. I think Noakes was a little too stiff in a lot of the fight, whereas Mason, he was in the flow state. He was throwing, and it was the right distance. It was fast. It was snappy. And but the one thing that Noakes did really well is he made the fight a little bit more combative, a little bit more back and forth than I think Abdullah Mason and his corner wanted. So this is something that Mason also talked about after the fight when they interviewed him. He was saying that he felt he fought Noakes' fight a little bit, and I think I would agree too. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It depends who you ask, right? Because for the fans, it made the fight super entertaining, right? And I love that a fighter, a boxer, has that instinct in them. You want to throw down and start going back and forth? Let's do it. Let's give the fans a show and let's make this arena start going crazy. And that's what he did. You know, Mason, he has that in him. He has that dog in him, right? He's not going to back down from anybody. Even Noakes, who is a very big power puncher, he's going to exchange. He's going to go forward. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to look for the knockout. So I like that killer instinct about him. Thing is, though, I think he is 21 years old. So he might be a little inexperienced in when to use it and when to maybe roll back and rely on your boxing IQ and your footwork. So I think for sure he could have made it a little bit easier. Sam Noakes still would have made it very competitive. But Mason, sometimes he was being a little too aggressive. He was a little too eager to throw down and get close to Noakes to land some shots. And that left him exposed a couple of times. So all in all, I'm still extremely impressed with Abdullah Mason. He's definitely, this is the new generation, right? Haney, Garcia, they were the new generation. Not anymore, right? Mason is the new generation. I'm super impressed by him. He definitely deserved the win. And he's a world champion now. And, he can start calling some shots. So I'm interested to see, how Top Rank manages him now that he is a world champion.
Yeah, before I even get to that, I think, Abdullah Mason really could have made this fight a lot more easier. I think he did fight, Noakes' fight, but I think a little bit. I think for me personally, the reason why maybe he did that maybe it stemmed from like those two knockdowns that he sustained. Maybe he let like the critics or the comments get to him a little bit. Now he got dropped by a guy a nobody, right? Twice. Now he's going up against, a title fight against a guy who is a dangerous power puncher and a guy who's very durable. I think maybe he decided to plant down a little bit to maybe see or to prove the critics wrong and say, hey, even though I did get dropped, but this is boxing. I get back up and I still beat their ass.
Yeah, he showed a great chin. Yeah. A fantastic chin, man. Noakes hits fucking hard. You could tell he has heavy hands. And Noakes landed some clean shots on Abdullah, and Mason just ate them like nothing. I don't think there was a point in the fight where Mason was like visibly hurt. Whereas there was a couple of instances where Mason hurt Sam Noakes, to the body and to the head. So I don't want to hear this narrative anymore that Abdullah Mason doesn't have a chin because that's an absolute lie. Mason knows how to take a punch. And even if you get him down on the ground, he's going to get right back up and take the fight to you.
Yeah, and for me, now that he's actually a world champion, he's a top 4 within that weight class, I want to see unification fights. I mean, how do you guys think he would match up against Davis?
It's an interesting fight. Very interesting fight because, as we know, Davis is a counterpuncher. He's very calculated. He likes to take his time. To the point where sometimes it's not really a good thing. I mean, if you go back to that Rolly fight, he was losing every round to Rolly. And then it worked out in the end, and he landed this perfect, beautiful shot on Rolly and knocked him out, right? So, no harm, no foul. But with Mason, I think right now it'd be a little bit too early for him because if he fights him like he fought Noakes, I think he'd be a little too aggressive. And I think Gervonta would be able to find a little crack. And when Abdullah Mason goes in a little too eager, Davis would catch him. Yeah. So I think it's a bit early for him. But, I mean, skill for skill, they're pretty good. It's a very interesting matchup for both fighters. So I think this is another thing, too. I think Shakur tweeted this on X. Is that he's young. Don't rush him, right? He's 21 years old. He's not gonna take over the world, right? Come on, give him some time to develop. This was a pretty fast track to a world title. I think he should definitely make some title defenses before unifying. At least if I was on his team, that's what I would advise him to do.
Yeah. Yes, because this was also the first time he's ever done 12 rounds, and the most rounds he ever did in the fight was 6 rounds. So for him to go from 6 rounds all the way to a 12 rounder is an insane, and it shows the level that he's at, that he was well above, that he was championship elite level. So this fight definitely showed a lot from Abdullah, the talent that he has and what he brings to the table. But then again, 21 years old, people online were critical on him, mainly on the defensive areas. They thought he, like you guys said, he left himself too exposed. So I would also advise him, if I was in this team, take a couple title defenses. You got some good names still in the division for contenders who you could keep adding to your resume, keep developing, keep doing some 12-rounders in there, get that cardio up, because definitely there were moments where I did feel it did seem like Abdullah was gassing out at instances, especially late on in the fight, which was expected for his first time doing a 12-rounder like that, especially in that type of high pace intensity of a fight against Sam Noakes. And maybe even down the line, he could do a rematch with Sam Noakes. I mean, I'd be all open for that. I think everyone would be happy with a rematch, and we could see the development, and we can see how he's progressed in that rematch compared to the first fight. But definitely a showcasing fight for Abdullah Mason. Same for Sam Noakes. Definitely got his name out there, and I'd be very happy to see Sam Noakes against maybe even like a Floyd Schofield or William Cepeda. There'd be some good fights for him at the contender level, and man, you never know, he can get another title shot later in the future, especially since the 135 is a pretty stacked division in boxing. So Abdullah Mason, youngest active champion in boxing today, and a very good showing from him as well. Now let's get on to the main event. The big boy, the Mexican monster, David Benavidez, got the TKO stoppage over Anthony Yarde in a one-sided massacre. I mean, this was what a lot of people were saying they were expecting to happen. But it was brutal, man. It got so bad, I felt bad for Yarde. I mean, that's how bad it was. It was such a one-sided beatdown, especially the two rounds prior to the stoppage. I mean, he was fucking letting his hands go, and he was tagging Yarde with some power shots, man. And Yarde, tough guy, good heart, but definitely levels were shown, and it's a damn shame he had to be the sacrificial lamb for David Benavidez to finally get his first stoppage at 175. Thoughts about this matchup?
Yeah, just a little before that, I think every fight except for the main event was almost seen as like maybe a 50-50 fight. I mean, Haney, Norman, Bam and Puma, undefeated fighters, two champions in that weight class. And then, Abdullah Mason and Noakes, great guys who have been, at the top of that weight class for a very long time, finally getting that chance to fight for a belt. But Anthony Yarde was the only guy who had any losses to his record. He is a guy who I think now is considered a gatekeeper. So in some sense, I think the whole world was a little bit sentimental for Yarde. Just the fact that of the last few beatings that he took and all his losses, and then with this one, I think, I feel like I also felt sorry for him as well.
Yeah, there's a reason why they call David Benavidez the monster. I mean, he puts an absolute whooping on his opponents. He makes them question whether or not they want to continue their career as boxers, because it was just ugly, man. Like, Benavidez right away letting his hands go, pushing Yarde to the ropes, and Yarde he's one of these fighters that is kind of comfortable on the ropes. We saw this as well in the Better B fight, where he's a very good catch type of fighter, right? He uses like the Philly shell a little bit. He uses some waist movements, and he avoids the big shots. But with Benavidez, he doesn't just throw like 2 or 3. This guy throws like 5, 6, 7, right? So he throws a lot of punches, and you can't block all of them, And eventually, Benavidez started landing some very nice shots on Yarde, and Yarde was doing his best to try to counter to dissuade Benavidez from just coming in and throwing a lot of punches. But Benavidez is a monster, and this is something I want to stress as well. He has such an underrated defense. His defense is so underrated. He's going forward. He's cutting off the ring. But it's not like he's a guy that he takes 4 punches and then he lands 5. No, he still is very defensively sound. He catches a lot of punches on his high guard, and he also does sometimes a little bit of step backs, sometimes a little bit of head movements. He does little small things that aren't very flashy that maybe a lot of people don't pick up on, but he's able to avoid a lot of the big shots that Yarde was throwing. So it was just so impressive. I was so impressed by Benavidez. I think, at 175, it's crazy because, he's a world champion. I really want to see him fight against Beterbiev or Bivol. He has the skills, man. He really does. I've been every single time he's fought, I'm just more and more like in awe of him. I think he really is definitely a top 10 pound for pound fighter. So dangerous, so explosive, and now he finally showed at 175 he can still stop somebody. So don't get him mistaken and say that he doesn't have power, because he definitely does.
Well, it was about damn time. You know what I'm saying? No, but yeah, for sure. And I think with the move that he stated after this win, now he wants to go, or he's going to move up to cruiserweight, and he's going to fight Gilberto Ramirez. I think it was crazy because apparently he had already signed the contract for that fight. So now all Ramirez has to do is win his match in January.
Yeah, that was the craziest plot twist ever. I had no idea. There was no rumors about this or anything.
Well, there was a rumor that apparently there was someone that was struggling to make weight. Maybe it could have been him.
So okay, yeah, but I mean, I didn't see anything about this. I think it's a crazy career move, honestly, and it makes sense for Benavidez because listen, this is the boogeyman of boxing. People do not want to fight David Benavidez, dude. He's just so dangerous. And so at 175, listen, Beterbiev, I really don't know what he's doing. If he's injured or if his opponent was injured, his fight got canceled. He's kind of on the older side, okay. Bivol, he's still coming back from his injury, so he's still not going to be ready for a little bit. Benavidez says, yeah, I'm moving up to cruiserweight to challenge El Zurdo Ramirez. I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? So we're going to see David Benavidez as a cruiserweight. We've known for a long time that he kills himself to make weight, especially 168, man. I don't know how he was making that weight class because he's really big. And when he's out of camp, you could tell he's 200 plus pounds. So he's a very big guy. It's an interesting matchup, honestly. And Ramirez, also it came out that Ramirez is going to be fighting in January. So before that fight is officially set, Ramirez does have to win his title defense, and then that fight will definitely take place. So still not 100% certain, but the plans are clear. If everything goes according to plan, we should see Ramirez versus David Benavidez in May for Ramirez's 2 belts, I believe, at cruiserweight.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see that matchup. Even though it's not the next fight, I'd prefer to see a Bivol showdown, Beterbiev even. But then again, I mean, the trilogy, they're kind of pushing for that, and I feel that fight needs to happen, at least the trilogy. So Benavidez would be on the sidelines for a bit, waiting for that opportunity. People were saying, why don't you fight someone like Callum Smith or Joshua Buatsi, names, top contenders like those. But honestly, if you're not Beterbiev or Bivol, Benavidez is going to wipe the floor with you like he did with Yarde. So there's no other opponent for him that would give him a major threat like Bivol, in my opinion, would be the best opponent for him. So he's like, fuck it, why not? Let me go up to cruiserweight, become would it be a 3 or 4 weight division champion?
Well, 68, 75, and then it'd be cruiserweight.
Cruiserweight. Was he not 160 champ?
No.
So
it'd be his third weight, being champion in 3 different weight classes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So yeah, he'd be, if he beats El Zurdo, he'd be a 3 weight division champion. I mean, that would be an accolade by itself already, and people wouldn't shit on him this time for being a quote unquote email champion like he is at the 175. So definitely David Benavidez is taking this fight as, just more career defining accolades to his resume, and I think it's a winnable fight for him too. I mean, he's that guy. Every time he fights, he definitely improves, and even though I would say his physique for this fight against Yarde was definitely not as impressive as the the physical state he was when he took on David Morrell. I feel he's way more inspired and motivated to take on Morrell than he was Yarde. But definitely, he still showed that he's levels above these guys. And I just need to see that Bivol fight, man. Bivol against Benavidez would be a great clash of styles, and finally put the rest, the whole, David Benavidez dropping Bivol and sparring with a jab. Yeah. That whole narrative that always goes on, because they sparred, multiple times before. Benavidez himself came out and said that he wobbled him in one of the last sparrings they had. So it'd definitely be interesting to see that matchup. I think that, I'll be honest, I think Benavidez would beat Bivol. I think he would beat Beterbiev as well. I think he's the best light heavyweight champion fighter at the moment. So it's definitely a fight that needs to happen, and a win over either one of those two, especially Bivol, would be career defining for David Benavidez. But yes, David Benavidez, next fight, hopefully May, against El Zurdo Ramirez at cruiserweight. Definitely going to be a big fight, and a fight that I expect David Benavidez to become a 3-weight division champion. So that was ring 4 in Saudi Arabia. In my opinion, I think it was a good 9 out of 10. A lot of shocking moments. Gave us a fight of the year contender. A knockout of the year contender too was the BAM against Puma, and definitely a one-sided massacre for the main event. So overall, a good event, and I'm very happy with it. Definitely lived up to the expectations that a lot of the fans had compared to the Ring 3 in New York. That one was just abysmal.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think the one critic that I can say about the whole card, it was very good, as the viewer, watching it through the TV. But just the crowd didn't seem to be too into it. And I think for the most part, it was because of the time. Like, who the fuck wants to get hammered at 3 a.m. For some boxing fights like that? So
it's illegal to drink there, no?
I think you're right. Yeah, you're right. But so even then, it's like, boxing isn't a sport that is practiced that much over there. So it's like a lot of these people that are seeing maybe boxing for the first time, and maybe they're not very appreciative of what they're seeing. Maybe, we're seeing these mega fights, these career defining fights, and to me, it just seemed like the crowd wasn't into it. If this card would have been like in the UK or in America, you would have definitely felt the energy from the crowd, even though it would have been later or whatever. But I think that's the one critic that I did have.
Well, hopefully we can get another ring card in the US, preferably not headlined by Ryan Garcia against Rolly Romero, but definitely a good event and a good card, and one that I personally enjoyed. Now moving on to the second and last topic of today's episode, we had the first official press conference and face-off between Jake El Gallo Paul against Anthony Joshua, and the memes and the tweets and post online that came out of this entire face-off was very funny, and people were speculating or saying their thoughts about it, saying, oh, Jake Paul might actually die against Anthony Joshua. So it was very interesting to see people's opinions about this face-off, and the fight's 4 weeks away. Can Jake Paul pull off the upset?
Yeah, that statement alone, I think that's how the fight should end up. It should end up Jake Paul dies on the canvas against Anthony Joshua. If AJ doesn't stop Jake the way he stopped Francis Ngannou, then boxing is fake. Then this whole shit is scripted.
Yeah, because listen, I've never been a person that says any of Jake's fights are fake. I think, he goes in there and he fights, and he strategically picks his opponents to give him the biggest advantage, right? So I don't believe any of that. I know that's a very big narrative around him, but listen, this is the fight, right? He has no advantage here. He doesn't have the reach. He doesn't have the height. I guess he has the age, but it's negligible, right? Anthony Joshua is still in his prime, or maybe not in his. I think I'd say he's still in his prime. Yeah. I'd say he is, because he's a heavyweight, so they mature a little bit later. Joshua's gonna kill him. I'm not even joking. This is actually true. Joshua is gonna hurt him bad, like really bad. or at least that's how it should go. So if this fight goes any other way, if Joshua wins by decision or if by some miraculous thing in the Matrix, Jake Paul is able to pull off a victory, then we know for a fact that, you know, Jake's contracts has a little clause that says you can't win or you can't knock him out, because AJ is the real deal. I know he's coming off of a loss against Danny Dubois, his worst one of his career, probably. Don't let that mistake you. Joshua is 6'6". He is like 250, 260, and he is an absolute killer. He knows what he's doing inside that ring. So, and he's also training with Usyk and his team out of nowhere. That was just a completely left field statement by him. I was like, whoa, okay, so we're training with with Usyk and his team. So that's interesting too. But Joshua has to knock him out under 3 rounds, honestly. Like this fight should be the highlight reel KO of the year. It should be Jake Paul flatlined on the canvas and Joshua just like shrugging it off because everyone knew this was coming.
Yeah, I saw people online also saying like this fight won't happen because like a week before the fight is supposed to take place, Jake Paul's gonna get a quote unquote injury. He's gonna pull out. And then he's gonna start this narrative that, I at least had the balls to, you know, to accept that fight, even though it's not gonna happen. That fight's gonna be postponed for sometime next year, and then ultimately scrapped. And then Jake Paul's gonna end up fighting another opponent. So that's what a scenario that I saw from the fans online, that the fight won't happen. There's gonna be a quote unquote fake injury out there before the fight takes place. But yeah, definitely on paper, I mean, Jake Paul really has no chance. I remember when Joshua took on Ngannou, the hype train for Ngannou was over the top. I mean, he had just dropped Tyson Fury, lost to him, of course, but people online were saying, "Oh, he beat Tyson Fury, this and that." So when he was going to take on Joshua, people were saying Joshua was already kind of washed up too. Ngannou has the puncher's chance, this and that. And then what happened? In 2 rounds, Anthony Joshua erased Ngannou and gave us, I think it was voted, knockout of the year? I think so. Yeah, so, I mean, if he did that to Francis Ngannou, who has, even though limited amount of boxing experience, but a shit ton of UFC MMA experience.
He was a champion.
In mixed martial arts. You really think that Jake Paul, who's only had 1 amateur fight against fucking Deji, is going to beat not only a former world champion, but he was also a decorated amateur fighter. So
gold medal.
Exactly. I don't see Jake Paul at all posing any threat for Anthony Joshua. I respect the balls. I mean, you gotta, because that's a huge jump from Gervonta Davis, even though that fight was a little funky by itself already, to Anthony Joshua, where he has no advantage. But definitely, I feel like this fight was a kind of like a last resort for Jake Paul, because let's say he goes with the fight, he gets flatlined, probably going to retire because he's not going to be right. But he's gonna leave the sport fucking with his millions. He's gonna say, you know, I had the balls of he changed boxing forever, this and that.
Women's boxing,
but even he would say, like, because I brought Netflix into the boxing scene, this and that. So Jake Paul definitely, you know, you got to respect his balls for even accepting the fight with Anthony Joshua. But realistically, I see no way of him even winning a single second of that fight.
Guys, I think we're forgetting the one thing that Jake Paul has over Anthony Joshua. That is the drip. Did you see the way he pulled up to both of these press conferences? Tank Davis, just the drip that he had, and then with the one with Anthony Joshua, he had over $60 million. That's all he had wearing. He was wearing all that shit. The grills, the chain, the watch.
Yeah, that shit is not gonna help you in fight night, big dog. That shit is AJ is gonna snatch that from his neck while Jake is unconscious, you know. And yeah, like you do have to give credit to Jake Paul. We've obviously, everyone has been critical of his opponent selection, and I think for some people take it a little too far. I think there is some fair criticism and there's some harsh criticism that people send his way. So in this fight, just supposedly, I was seeing that they were the ones that were, gave him like a list of opponents. Like, hey, you can't just choose anybody. You can't choose like an Andre August or like a Ryan Borland, right, to fight on Netflix. No, we need a massive event. So they gave him some names, and one of them, there was a couple, Ryan Garcia, but he's fighting Terrence Crawford, but I don't know if he said yes or no. Supposedly he said no, but then people were saying he said yeah. I don't know. But AJ was one of them, and Jake went with AJ. So good on him, But I'm gonna enjoy watching him get knocked out because I've been looking forward to this moment for a very long time.
Yeah, it should be very interesting as the weeks progress. Let's see if people's prediction about it, whether or not he pulls out of the fight prior to it, takes place. But if not, then we'll for sure see a very, very funny heavyweight showdown featuring Jake Paul taking on Anthony Joshua. But I think we covered all that we wanted to cover in today's episode. Let us know down below your early predictions for Jake Paul against Joshua. Do you think Jake Paul can pull off the upset, or do you think it's going to be rigged and I don't know, Joshua's not going to knock him out? Also, let us know about your thoughts on Ring 4. Impressed with David Benavidez? Devin Haney, who's his next opponent? Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. We are on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Lastly, we're trying to build up a community on Discord, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. Now, this was Pablo, and I was Rudo Nasa, and this was the Last Round Podcast. Thank you for watching.